Thank you for tuning into the Generational Gauntlet Top 5 Faves. This is the podcast where we give you our top 5 on a topic with a generational twist to it. My name is Matt Lambert, and I'm the host of this podcast. Each week, I bring in a guest who's from a different generation than me to discuss or debate our top 5 on a selected topic. And today's episode is going to be a fun one, as it felt like something that just had to happen on so many levels. Number one, I always post on the back end of these episodes that if you have a topic you'd like to hear covered, to send it in. Someone suggested the top 5 vacation destinations. In the meantime, I had posted on the Facebook page for this podcast that as of the beginning of May 2026, the podcast had been listened to in 36 different countries, including one on every livable continent. And that got me thinking. There are a lot of places that have been listening that I've never had the opportunity to visit, which is kind of like what the person suggested of the top 5 vacation destinations. So with that, today's topic was born, and it's the top 5 countries you'd love to visit. And when I thought about who to do this episode with, one of my family members immediately came to mind. So today's guest is Gary Nash, or as I call him, Uncle Gene. Gene is a baby boomer, a frequent traveler, and has had some really cool experiences throughout his life. So, Uncle Gene, welcome into the podcast. How have things been going your way?
Good. Thank you very much.
And I told you this before we pressed the record button, but you are actually the first baby boomer we've had on the podcast. So you are checking off a generation here that we have not had on here yet. So I got to ask, how does that feel to be the first baby boomer that has been on this recording?
Well, I will have to say that I'm a young baby boomer because I was
You
born
are.
in 63.
You are. You're like that fringe. So yeah.
Exactly.
As we kick things off today and talk about the countries we'd like to visit, I do have to ask you first, what countries have you visited outside of the United States?
Okay. Well, not a lot because I've done a lot of traveling in the U.S., but the
Mhm.
countries I have visited are Iceland, Canada, Mexico, and the Bahamas.
Okay, you've been to more than me. So the only places I've traveled outside the U.S., I've been to the Grand Cayman Islands, I've been to Jamaica, and I've been to the Dominican Republic. And Gene, one of the reasons I thought about you as somebody for this episode is you've had some pretty epic experiences. And for a while, you lived on an Alaskan fishing boat. Can you talk about that experience here off the rip?
Absolutely. So in 2011, when the construction industry was going through a devastating slump, I answered an ad in the newspaper and interviewed for a position in Alaska. So it was for June, July, and August of that year. I lived on a salmon processing ship in the Aleutian Islands, Chignik Bay, Alaska, to be exact. We shipped out of Seattle, Washington. Took
Hmm.
us a week to get there. And I was only lived on the ship for the week up there, maybe a week after we got up there. And they asked a few of us, more dependable ones, if we would like to live in the onshore housing, which was basically it was like a double wide trailer with a hallway down the middle and little rooms on each side. Each room had a bunk bed and a bathroom. I shared a room with a young man that worked night shift and I worked day shift. So we never saw each other. So it was like lived in a room by myself. It was pretty cool. But I worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for those
Whew.
3 months. And then, of course, it stays daylight almost 24 hours a day during the summer. So after dinner, I would go and explore um, the island for like 2 or 3 hours before I'd come back and take a shower and hit the hay. I was the day shift row department manager. We packaged and we flash froze the roe, the fish eggs.
Mhm.
And after I've completed my contract, I was one of the few that they actually flew back to the States. I didn't have to make the trip back on the ship. But I worked with I worked with a lot of young people from different countries, and it was an amazing experience. I basically got paid for to be on a 3-month adventure.
That's awesome. Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned this adventure piece because I think you're someone who's went through a lot of really cool adventures. I remember I was down in North Carolina with some people from my work. We did a warrior dash. Who did I run into while down there? You. So, what are some of the coolest things you think you've gotten to experience in all of your travels?
Well, I've done a lot of motorcycling all over the country. I've been to South Dakota, Wyoming, Florida, New Hampshire, Michigan. I've been to all the major motorcycle rallies except for Laughlin, Nevada. And yes, I have been to Sturgis. I and some of the experiences that I come to mind from my memory right away is I swam with the manatees down in Florida. I've swam with the stingrays down in the Bahamas, and I've panned for gold. I've landed on a glacier by helicopter. I've drank water directly from a glacier. I'm going to tell you that story really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The guide told us if we wanted to drink water directly off the glacier that we should. There was two ways to do it. One with our sunglasses, or two we could do a push up and drink on the down, drink directly from the water. He told us to wear our gloves, which I did not do. And then I found out afterwards why. I thought it was so that my hands wouldn't get cold. That's not it at all. On the way back in the helicopter, I noticed that my hands started to burn or sting. And it's because the top of a glacier are tiny little crystals that are like glass, and they actually cut through your skin. And that's why my hands were burning or stinging, is
Oh
because
my goodness.
I cut my hands on the glacier. But anyway, I've been to, dog sledding training facility. I've rode the train into Yukon Territory along the trail of the Klondike Gold Rush. I've been whale watching. I saw the northern lights in Iceland, the geysers, the wild ponies, the giant waterfalls, the black sand beaches. I've been to Mayan ruins. I've been to Mount Rushmore, Devil's
Mhm.
Tower. I've seen petroglyphs, the white sands of New Mexico, Niagara Falls, the Grand Canyon, Pueblo ruins, the Taos, New Mexico Pueblo, which is the longest inhabited Pueblo in the country. Pueblo actually means settlement, so it's the longest existing settlement. And I've been to the Badlands and the deserts and the Sequoia National Forest, the mountains, the coast, the prairies. Uh, Done quite a bit in this country. And then when I turned 50, now I'm 63 now, as I said earlier. When I turned 50, I started running, and I ran some amazing places. But I ran over 150 races from the age of 50 till now. Races and endurance challenges. I've done everything from 5Ks to ultra marathons, including the Bataan Memorial Death March. I've done the Peachtree 10Ks, the Cooper River Bridge 10Ks, the Knoxville Marathon. I've done numerous Spartan races, battle
Uh-huh.
frogs, bone frogs, 12-hour and 24-hour endurance challenges, and ultra marathons. I've actually completed over 55 miles in a 24-hour period trail running, and I've completed 100 miles on a bike. And I've won my age group in 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And the other adventures, I enjoy canoeing, kayaking, whitewater rafting, snow tubing, river tubing, zip lining, rappelling, fishing, camping, backpacking, and biking. I've rafted class 5 rapids. I've zip lined off the New River Gorge Bridge. I've rappelled 200-foot waterfalls. I've climbed Mount Katahdin in Maine, Half Dome in Yosemite. I've hiked and camped down into Havasu Falls in the Grand Canyon. I've rafted the Ocoee River 3 times, which is where the Atlanta Georgia Olympics whitewater events were held. I've rafted the Chattooga River, which is where they filmed the Burt Reynolds movie Deliverance. I've rafted the Nantahala, the French Broad, the North Carolina Whitewater Center, and I I love roadside attractions. Any town I'm in, I'll pull up on Atlas Obscura or Roadside America and see what roadside attractions are in that town. Try to visit a few of them. I like general stores, old churches, cemeteries, covered bridges, historical towns, lighthouses, art museums. I've been to most of the major big cities in the country: New York, Vegas, Los Angeles, Seattle,
Mhm.
etc. So that's, I would say, a small summary of myself, but I think maybe it's a larger summary.
No, I think you just proved why you're the person I asked to come on this episode. You're very well traveled. You've had a lot of really cool and epic experiences that what you just described is what would be like multiple lifetimes for some people, and you've done all this as one individual person. So we're going to jump into our top fives. And for any first time listeners to this podcast, here's how the whole thing works. So, my Uncle Gene and I have each put together our own list for our top five countries we'd love to visit. And one of the rules we put in place today was we said money isn't an issue. Like, this is, you have an endless supply of money to go wherever you want to go. Travel time's not the issue. So, it was just what's on your bucket list. I don't know anything about his list. He doesn't know anything about mine. He's going to give his number five and why. I'll give my number five and why. And then we'll continue in that fashion until we get to each of our number ones. So, with that, Uncle Gene, I'm going to hand it to you. What was your number five country on your list?
Number five, I have Scotland. And the things that come to mind when I think of Scotland are all the castles, of course, and especially the Edinburgh Castle. The Isle of Skye, I've heard, is amazing. The Loch Ness and the Scottish Highlands, including the Highland Games and the islands and the coastlines, just intrigue me. I would love to spend some time in Scotland.
I like that entry. I will say Scotland is not on my list. This popped up on a random fact episode that Nora and I did. And one of the things that really surprised me about Scotland is their national animal is the unicorn, which I find to be very just hilarious. It's on their coat of arms. It is a big thing there. I think it's on some of the castles. So I like that entry on your list, Scotland. Is that a place you think you'll head anytime soon?
Um, that's a good question, but because it's number five, hopefully I get to the other four first.
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair. All right. So my number five, clocking in at number five for me, was a country that's listened to the podcast, and that is Australia. And I think Australia sometimes gets a bad rap from people because of the dangerous animals. But for me, the wildlife is why I want to go there. You've got the Great Barrier Reef, you've got kangaroos, koalas, wombats. I've been blessed to snorkel in a few places in the Atlantic, the Gulf, and the Caribbean, but the Great Barrier Reef is the dream destination for me in terms of snorkeling. Just a couple random facts about the Great Barrier Reef here. It's the world's largest coral reef system. It's got over 2,900 individual reefs and 900 islands, stretching for over 1,400 miles. The reef is so big it can be seen from outer space, and it's the world's largest single structure made by living organisms. There was an episode that released today, so we're recording this on May 31st. It came up on that episode that I'm a huge shark nerd, and Australia has 183 species of sharks, which is awesome. And of course, they have the great white shark, which I love. To cap this all off, the Australian people just seem cool. The athletes, the famous people like the Irwins, Chris Hemsworth, people that come to mind, just seem to be amazing human beings. So this is a country that I'd love to visit for the animals, but honestly for the vibes. So Gene, I gotta ask, does Australia land somewhere in your top four?
It does not, but
Okay.
I you're talking about sharks. I went shark fishing one time, and there were four of us on the boat, and the other three caught their shark, and I got mine almost into the boat before it snapped the line and got away. So
While you were on this boat, did anybody drop the joke that we need a bigger boat?
No, but I get it.
They should have. They should have. Well, I'll kick it to you. What was your number 4 country?
Number 4 is France.
Okay.
And of course, at France, Paris. You guys devote a couple days to Paris. Um, France has a lot of castles and palaces. I'm back to castles again. The French Riviera, the Louvre. I would love to see the Louvre and other art museums in France that I can't pronounce the names of. And of course, the cobblestone streets and homes where the famous artists lived. France is number 4 for me.
France is in my honorable mentions. It didn't make my top 5. Now, I know there is somebody that it appears pops up each week in my analytics listening from France, so I apologize. Like I said, there'd be a top 10 country, but I just had 5 that came before it. So my number 4, I went with Greece. And this is one place, or actually the only country on my list that we haven't had a listener from. So if anybody knows someone from Greece, let them know about the podcast. Have them check us out. So Greece makes my list for 3 reasons. Number 1 is history. I'm a history nerd, and you're talking about a country that has the city of Athens, home to the first Olympic Games, a cultural cornerstone of world history. Number 2 is the views in the water. Obviously, Greece has over 6,000 islands. The photos I've seen of Greece have made my jaw drop. And then finally would just be the food. You're giving me the true Mediterranean diet with the fresh seafood, and I'm about to book a flight right now. So Greece, number 4 on my list. Uncle Gene, does Greece make your list here today?
No, but that is a good choice. I once did a lot of work for a mother daughter real estate
Hmm.
team, and their ancestry is Greece, and
Oh,
they've
nice.
both been there and they love it.
Yeah, anybody I know that's been there has just raved about the country. So it looks really beautiful. I also like that so far our lists we're not sharing any countries. This is cool. I like that we've got some diverse takes here. With that, what was your number 3?
Number 3 is Italy.
Okay.
Uh, Italy, just like I said, Paris and France, you got to spend several days at. Italy, the same for Rome and Venice. You've got to cover those two towns quite a bit. Of course, I want to see the Colosseum and the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
I love old chapels, and the Trevi Fountain. I've heard is cool to see.
Mhm.
So, and of course, the food. You know,
Yes.
if
Yeah.
you go to Italy, you got to experience the food.
Yes. I I'm gonna hold my comments on Italy because, this might be the one that makes it on both of our lists. So it's a little bit higher than number 3 for me. I went with Peru for my number 3. So, as a history buff, this makes my list because you've got one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world with Machu Picchu. And for anybody that doesn't know the background of that structure, it was built in what they believe at 1450 and was believed to be the estate of, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but Pachacuti, though that was never confirmed. The fact that this place still stands and we have roads that have to be repaved every single year speaks to the craftsmanship of our ancestors and maybe, some of the products we're using today. What's more wild to me is that this place was undiscovered in terms of Machu Picchu until 1911. If you want to go to the site, it's a 1.5 to 2 hour hike on the stairway. But for me, the hike that takes days would be the dream. If you go up the Inca Trail, it takes 4 days through the jungle to get to this location. Peru has numerous other historical locations that I think people don't really focus on. The whole Incan culture is a fascinating study if you've never done it. Getting to go to cities like Lima or Cuzco would be a dream. But what's really interesting to me about Peru is that it's considered one of the most mega diverse countries on earth. It has the Andes Mountains, the Amazon rainforest, and Lake Titicaca, the world's highest navigable lake, known for its floating reed islands. And if you're familiar with Peruvian food, which the food, it's always a big thing for me, you've got the wide variety of chicken, potatoes, fish. It sounds good. So the hiking there, the history, the food, Peru landed number 3 on my list. Uncle Gino, I'm curious, does Peru land in your top 2 today?
Does not, but Machu Picchu is definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, that would be a really cool place to explore. We studied it with Nora this past year, and just the fact that all that stuff still stands just blows my mind that they were able hundreds of years ago to build things that still stand the test of time and wear and tear. So I'll hand it to you. What was your number two country?
I'm gonna cheat on number 2. I'm
Okay.
I'm actually gonna pick 2 for number 2.
That's okay.
Switzerland/Norway.
Okay,
Uh,
those make sense of combining them.
Switzerland, of course, you got your alpine peaks and your crystal clear lakes and the multitudes of waterfalls and beautiful valleys and the high altitude trains to those areas. And then in Norway for me is always gives me that Alaska Iceland vibe. You have Oslo and the nearby towns, and you got saunas and hiking and biking and art and the northern lights and the whale watching and the midnight sun, dog sledding, mountain peaks, the glittering fjords, fishing villages, and of course, nature, off the charts, nature.
No, I like those. They weren't on my list today, but you bring up there's a lot of really good like outdoorsy type activities in those places. So my number two, I went with Brazil. And I have wanted to travel to Brazil since I was a very young child. I remember when I was in school and they talked about the Amazon rainforest, even understanding the dangers of it, I was like, drop me off there. I'll be fine. Like, I want to explore it. You've got a place that has jaguars, the pink river dolphins, sloths, black spider monkeys. And as a kid, this sounded like paradise. As I've gotten older, I love a lot of other features of Brazil, or am interested in them now as well. Places like Rio de Janeiro. The opportunity to see the 98-foot tall Christ the Redeemer statue would be a massive bucket list item for me. I would love to check out the Iguazu Falls, which many consider the most impressive system of waterfalls in the world. I've heard the beaches in Brazil are amazing, but the reason this one ranks so high now is it's the home to BJJ, which plays a huge role in my household. So getting to go maybe check out a gym, see BJJ live in the country where it's most notorious would be amazing. I've gotten to meet a lot of Brazilian people with my daughter's gym, and I have to say they are some of the most incredible people I've met. So the Brazilian culture, the people, they seem like just such a great group, a fun group to hang out with. A couple years, or I guess several years ago, Madison and I were in the Dominican Republic, and we went on this snorkeling tour. And we were the only American couple on the tour. There was a couple from Canada, and the rest of our entire tour was a group from Brazil. And they were having the most fun I have ever seen. Throughout every part of the experience, they were a lot of fun to be around. So Brazil, number two for me. Uncle Gene, I got to ask, does Brazil make your number one here today?
It does, as a matter of fact.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I stole your thunder.
No worries. Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is.
So Brazil, of course, you mentioned the rainforest and Rio de Janeiro and the Christ Redeemer statue, which was built in 1931, and not only does it is it 98 feet tall, but it has a 92-foot arm span. It's the largest Art Deco style sculpture globally, and it's one of the new seven wonders of the world. So
Yep.
yeah, definitely. Sugarloaf Mountain cable car looks really cool. The beaches, I'm sure you've heard of Ipanema. There was a song in 1962 called "The Girl from Ipanema," which made that beach famous, and it is, according to the photos I've seen, is beautiful. And a lot of people go to Mardi Gras. If you're going to go to a Mardi Gras, go to Rio Carnival.
Yes.
So
So I got to ask, if you went to Brazil, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, does that have any interest of you like it does in my house?
I respect, I watch a lot of MMA too, and I respect those fighters that have the jiu-jitsu training. They're a beast.
They
Yeah,
are.
so
They are.
yeah.
This is why I don't mess with my daughter anymore. She's gotten to the point where she beats me up. Well, Uncle Gene, my number one, it's interesting. I stole your number one. You stole mine a little bit earlier, and my number one is Italy. And you hit some of the pieces. I won't do a deep dive on the history, but Rome itself, you mentioned things like the Colosseum, the Sistine Chapel. You got St. Peter's Basilica, the Roman Forum, the Pantheon. Um, One thing that I really love about like the Roman history. So when we were doing Nora's history for her homeschool, we were doing ancient history and we talked about these Roman baths where people would bathe and they would use the bathroom in front of each other. And she was blown away at the disgusting nature of the baths. She was really grossed out at what they used for toilet paper. So I had a friend who went to Italy during this time and they got Nora a book. And one of the things they bookmarked in the book was about the Roman baths so she could learn more information about them. But, you mentioned some of the history in Rome. I think we didn't even talk about the Leaning Tower of Pisa or in Italy. We didn't talk about Pompeii, Florence. Um, you mentioned the food. My friend who went there said the food is incredible. I'm on a gluten-free diet now, and my body would probably not cooperate. But the idea of pasta and pizza nonstop is just amazing. Anybody I've met that has went to Italy talks about the hospitality, how gracious the people are. So if anyone on this that's listening to this podcast wants to sponsor a trip to go to Italy, let me know. I'll pack my bags. I'm ready to roll. So, Uncle Gene, I got to ask, do you have I always ask people at the end of our lists, any beef, any complaints with my list here today?
Not at all. Not at all. And I do have a couple honorable mentions.
Okay, well, let's hear them.
Okay, so Amsterdam is on my bucket list, and Nepal. Nepal has the highest peaks in the world. The Buddhist culture is just a country that's always intrigued me. I,
Yeah, I like it. So when are you planning to go on some of these trips? When are you headed to Brazil?
well, not this year.
Not this year.
I'm still trying to determine if I'm going to Montana or if I'm going to stay closer to home and go up to Harper's Ferry and over to DC and back down through Richmond and just do a big circle. So I've not I've not decided yet.
Got it. Well, hey, before we wrap up here today, I want to throw some major props to my podcasting service that I use, Riverside.
Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so right now, my uncle and I are recording from 2 different states. However, we have been able to hop on here this afternoon and record an episode together. Riverside gives you a remote platform to record with anyone at any time and anywhere. Their editing software makes it really easy to make this a cleaner product, and Riverside also allows you to track your analytical data. That includes streams, how your episodes are performing, and what countries your listeners are listening from. So this episode, in a way, was really brought to you by the analytical data of Riverside. If you or someone you know are looking for a podcasting or recording software, I'll have an affiliate link in the episode description, so please make sure to check it out. If your country was featured on the podcast today, I think we ended up with about 8 different countries. Throw in our honorable mentions, probably about 10 different. If you were featured and you've been listening to the podcast, let us know. Comment on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. Leave a comment on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Heck, shoot us an email, as it's just been really cool to see the views across various countries. So, Uncle Gene, thank you for your time. It was good getting to catch up with you today and hear where you would like to travel. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. If you've not done so yet, like, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review. This was a topic suggested by a listener, so if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, you can send those in to generationalfave5@gmail.com. That's generational, FAVE, the number 5, at gmail.com. Thank you all for tuning in.